She is ripping at 419 kilowatts.
The Lucid Gravity is one of the best road tripping electric vehicles that you could buy today. And I know that from personal experience because I've probably spent somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000 miles in a couple different Lucid Gravity over the past few months doing range tests, and also this crazy race that Kyle Connor from Out of Spec put together where we raced 7 all-electric 7-seat EVs from Fort Kent, Maine down to Key West, Florida. And out of those 7 vehicles, the Lucid Gravity finished number 1 and number 2. Well, why is that? Besides the fact that you had some really good people in those vehicles, piloting them to the right charging stations and so forth. I'm kidding. The other teams that we raced against also did a fantastic job with that. But it's really because the Gravity is just a great road tripping EV. And what makes a vehicle a great road trip? Well, number one, comfort. And that goes for whether it's a combustion vehicle or an electric vehicle. You want comfort if you're going to be spending a lot of time in your vehicle on a long road trip. Gravity has that super comfortable vehicle to be in. But besides that, the 2 real important factors for electric vehicles are range and charging speed. As for range, I recently completed a 70-mile-an-hour highway range test with a Lucid Gravity Grand Touring, where I went slightly over 400 miles at a constant 70 miles an hour. So it ticks that box because there are very few electric vehicles today, very few, that can go 400 miles at 70 miles an hour. Okay, so it's got the range. Charging speed. It is absolutely a charging monster. One of the best fast charging electric vehicles you could buy today, and I've spent a lot of time documenting that. I've charged a number of Gravity many times on a variety of different DC fast chargers to see how it performs. I have data from 400 kilowatt ChargePoint DC fast charger, 350 kilowatt EVgo DC fast charger, a number of Tesla superchargers, but I've yet to charge it on a Tesla V4 Supercharger, a true V4 Supercharger, not the V4 stalls with the V3 cabinets that Tesla has all over the country. They only have one actual real V4 station, and that's where I am here today. I'm out in Northern California, and I'm going to be taking this vehicle over to the Redwood City V4 Tesla Supercharger tonight to do a 0 to 100% charge reporting, and we can compare it to the data I have on the other chargers. It should charge much better. Well, I won't say much better, but the very beginning of the charging session should be better, because on all of the other chargers, the station was limiting the power. Even on the 400 kilowatt DC fast charger, the Gravity wanted more power. So we should be able to pull close to 420 kilowatt for a short period of time, at least in the beginning of the charging session, if the Tesla V4 Supercharger is performing properly. Now, I'm concerned about that because I've sent some spotters out here in the past few days with mixed results. People are reporting that they're not getting the power from the station that they're supposed to. And I'm hoping that's because there were other vehicles charging at the time they were there. Maybe there were too many vehicles at once. I know some of the stations at this site are not functioning, so I don't know how that's going to affect it. So what I'm going to do is I'm planning on going there after midnight tonight. Hopefully there'll be less people at the site, and I'll be able to get all the power that that site is able to deliver, and which should be, with the Gravity, close to 420 kilowatts. So with that said, I'm going to get a little bit of rest because I just landed out here in California and head over to the real V4 Tesla Supercharger in Redwood City.
All right, we're on the way to the Redwood City Supercharger. I've got my buddy here, Chris Bowe. You guys may recognize him. He's got a YouTube channel. He's active on social media. He's an F-150 Lightning guy, so that's really how we probably became friends in the beginning. You know,
Yeah.
we're both active on social with F-150 Lightning. Chris, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I went to these same chargers with my Lightning. I have a channel, Bow Family EV, and so I was there with a friend and his Silverado, and we tried to test it out earlier yesterday, and it did not do so well because there were a lot of other Teslas there charging. And so yeah, on my channel I do a lot of Lightning content. My wife has the Tesla Model Y, so we've done some stuff with that, and just some other different EV vehicles, general content. I do the Lightning Club for the Bay Area, also NorCal EVs, so general EV stuff. But yeah, we went by these same chargers, and because it had other EVs there, we just didn't get any kind of peak charging rates. We tried to get 300 kilowatts for the Silverado unsuccessfully, so here we are at night trying to see if it can be less crowded and more successful.
I hope that makes a difference, because you know, Chris was checking it out last night, as he just said, and was not able to get full power. Now we assume that was the station's fault and not him. I got to make sure where I'm going here.
Another mile ahead.
Yeah, keep going straight. Oops.
Oh.
So, you know, that's one of the great things about the electric vehicle community. When Chris found out that I'm coming out here, he's like, do you want me to pick you up at the airport? And, you know, offered to help. And, you know, this is actually the first time we've met. We just know each other from being online. And that's, you know, that's what you get a lot with the electric vehicle community. It seems like whenever I go somewhere, if I need any kind of help, there's always people there that are like, do you want me to pick you up? Do you want me to drop you off? And you were the guy that was offering this time to help out if I need anything. So hopefully we'll be able to get this off in the first shot. I left myself a little bit of time. It's midnight, but if we have a failed first attempt, I might head back out onto the highway, drive the battery down, move over and do a different stall, because we really want to see this thing pull like what it could pull, close to 420 kilowatts. I've already charged a Gravity at over 400 kilowatts on a 400 kilowatt charger, an Iona station, also charge point stations. But I want to see what this thing can do when it's not being held back by the power the station's delivering. And this true V4 station should be able to deliver whatever the Gravity's asking for. So we should be ripping it close to 420 kilowatts. Hopefully that's what we get, and you know, get a good, nice charging curve. No derating, anything like that, and then we can analyze the hell out of it like I always do.
Yeah, it'll be a great test to see if we can achieve the 400, and then two, to make sure that it doesn't thermally derate it at some point.
Yeah,
how long will it hold?
Happen. We should have, you know, I'll know that we've got a really good charging curve if it holds over 200 kilowatts to like beyond 55%. So the 400, I don't know how long it's going to hold it at this station, pulling at such a high amount. It might lower down pretty quickly, like at like 10% or something like that. I don't know. I haven't been able to charge it this fast. I know at the 400 kilowatt stations, it could hold it till about 15% state of charge. So
yeah, you've got a good.
This is where I get off here, I think, right?
Yep, this is the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a good baseline with. You've done an Alpatronic.
Yeah.
You've done EVgo. Charge point.
And EVgo, yeah, and multiple Tesla V3.5s, but you know that really is not what we're looking for here.
And then on one extreme with the V4 cabinet, we've done a Tesla Cybertruck with 500 kilowatts for 5 seconds. Strong, solid 5 seconds.
It's like, why even? That's just to say it charged at 500.
It brought me back to high school. Yeah. Solid 5 seconds. No judgment.
It's like, you know, what's most important is, I think people that really understand charging is, you know, how long it holds a high rate.
Right.
Rather than that peak that, oh wow, we hit 450, but then it's under 200 kilowatts in like, you know, 3 minutes. That's not what you want to see.
Right.
So what I'll analyze, once I get this full charge recording, I'll analyze the whole charging curve. I'm just going to do the recording once we get here. I'm not going to really do a lot of recording on site. We're just like less than a mile away. But once I get the full recording, I'll take it back home and do my comprehensive analyzing, and we'll see just how better it charged. Hopefully it does charge better on this V4 than we've seen before on the 400 kilowatt and 350 kilowatt stations. So that's what I'm really interested in seeing. Will it derate earlier? Will the vehicle lower its charging rate earlier because it charged at such a high rate, you know, in the beginning? You know, will that happen? And then it could actually end up taking longer to charge to 80% if it slows the charging down because things got too hot and needed to cool off. I don't know. We'll find out soon.
Yeah, lots of questions about these V4 cabinets. It's the only one in the country right now, and they do go about it a little bit different with how they power share them, where the other ones are very granular down to a single kilowatt in terms of how they distribute. These have power modules in them, more typical to what you might see from, say, a Kempower, where they, depending on how many vehicles you have plugged in at the time, they will go down, I think, by 25 kilowatts.
It'll drop down in blocks.
Blocks, exactly.
So we don't want that to happen. That's where we're going now. And we're getting battery critically low. We're at 1% stated charge, but it's saying arrival will be at 0.
Yeah.
And, you know, we should be pulling, I think it's right here. Climate control disabled. You heard the climate control just shut off.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
So no more climate control.
And we are just about here.
And there'll be a shopping center. It's going to be in a shopping center. There's a Verizon.
It's got to be it right here.
Right by the Marshalls. We're going to pull up behind the Marshalls. It's a very well-placed supercharger. Yeah, but there's a Chuck E. Cheese, a Marshalls, and a railroad track. So when you see
a Waymo.
Yeah, well, the Waymo's everywhere. We've got the, this is our friend Andrew here. Just follow Andrew.
Oh, okay.
So we got our friend Andrew here in the,
that's right, it's right in front of us.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, Tom. This is the #2 EV as rated by Kelley Blue Book.
In America.
In America, the Dodge Charger.
The Dodge Charger.
So,
and #3 is the Fiat 500.
The Fiat 500. Shout out to the Fiat.
the top 3 EVs. That's crazy. But yeah, he picked up his Charger, which he's been trying to get for the last 6 months or something. He bought it, and then there was a problem, and it's been in the shop for like 6 months.
Yeah.
He just picked it up a couple days ago. I drove with him earlier today. And oh, we are empty, right?
This is beautiful.
Look like there's many cars here.
There's
at
one.
all.
I see one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep, just one.
That's what we want.
And when I was here the other day, one of these chargers was down, and that looks like the Model Y is just pulling out. So that's perfect. Going to have it all to yourself,
We
Tom.
might be all alone,
This
which
is perfect.
what we want. I'll come down to this end one.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have to go to the end one. I'll back in this one. I think 1A is not functioning. Oh, and also, aren't these, there's like a sticker on them saying don't pull in on this side. There's either a green sticker or a red X. Because of the cable placement, each station has like a proper side. I might be at the wrong side for this one. No, green. There's a green check mark that says charge on this side, so I'm doing good. Okay, so we're here now, plugging in, and we'll see exactly what this guy pulls.
Fingers crossed.
All right, so I just plugged in, and it is ripping. We are up to over 400 kilowatts already. 403, 404, 405, 406, 407. And now I need to shut off this. 415, 416, 417. I had to shut off the HVAC. I couldn't shut it off before we started because it was disabled because of the fact that the state of charge was so low. 419. She is ripping at 419 kilowatts. We are already up to 4% in like less than a minute. %. I plugged in at 1213, so we
Looks like
need
it topped off at 419 kilowatts.
Yeah, 419 is the highest I've did so far. It's already starting to drop down. 418. Still 419 kilowatts. This thing was ripping. Well, still now it's 417. All right. All right, so I'm going to record this whole charging session now, 0 to 100. When I get back home, we're going to compare it to my other charging sessions I've done with, as I mentioned, on a 400 kilowatt charger, 2 different 400 kilowatt chargers, the 350 kilowatt charger, and also my Tesla V3.5 charging sessions. We'll put them all on a graph, and we'll see exactly what the charging difference is. But dude, we are ripping. It is still at 412 kilowatts, and we're already at 9%, just about ready to be 10%. We've been here for 2 minutes, and it's at 10%. So in 2 minutes, we've added 43 miles of driving range. So this thing is killing it. Hopefully there's no derating. We get a good full charging curve, and then we'll put it all on paper and see just how well it does.
So just now went below 400 kilowatts. Well, how many minutes was that? 1 minute?
No, 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Yeah. It peaked at 419, and then it slowly started coming down. But it was, you know, but now we're already under 400 kilowatts, but we're at 13% state of charge. I mean, we're only 3 minutes in now, and we already had 55 miles of range in 3 minutes.
That's incredible.
You and I wish we had this on our Lightnings.
Oh, can you imagine?
All right, so I'm back from California now, and I've had time to digest, analyze, and make my charts for that 0 to 100% charge recording, which we're going to take a look at now, and I'm going to compare it to the other charging sessions that I've had on different types of chargers with the Lucid Gravity. But first, let's take a look at the full 0 to 100 charge recording in time lapse. Then we'll jump into the charts. It takes only about 30 seconds for the Gravity to hit its peak charging speed of 419 kilowatt, which is a 3.4 C charging rate. That's the highest of any EV we currently can buy here in the US, but it doesn't last long. After 1 minute, the power is already lowering, but the vehicle holds over 400 kilowatt for a little over 2 minutes. We hit 10% state of charge in under 2 minutes, and the Gravity is still pulling 409 kilowatt at that point. 20% comes in just under 4 minutes, and the Gravity is now charging at 378 kilowatts. We reach 30% state of charge in 6 minutes and 8 seconds, and we're still pulling 337 kilowatts. And look at the EPA rated miles added, 127 miles in 6 minutes. That's just amazing. 40% state of charge comes after only 8 minutes and 36 seconds of charging, and the Gravity is now charging at less than 300 kilowatts. It's pulling a paltry 286 kilowatts. Next up, 50% state of charge. And this is ridiculously impressive. The Gravity replenished half of its battery in 11 and a half minutes. The charging rate is now 220 kilowatts, and the vehicle has added 215 EPA rated miles in 11 and a half minutes. That's nuts. For comparison, it takes a Tesla V3 or V3.5 Supercharger just under 19 minutes to charge from 0 to 50%. That's 60% longer than it takes on the V4. Man, I wish we could have charged the Gravity at V4 stations when I participated in Out of Specs Eastern Edge race recently, because we would have won for sure. We hit 60% state of charge after only 15 minutes and 40 seconds. The charging rates now drop below 200 kilowatts as we're pulling 175 kilowatts. 70% state of charge comes after charging a little longer than 20 minutes, and the Gravity is now charging at 155 kilowatts. We've now added 303 EPA rated miles in 20 minutes of charging, and at 70% state of charging, we're still averaging 9 miles of range for every minute we're charging. The Gravity reaches the ever important 80% state of charge 6 minutes later, and the charging rate is now just over 100 kilowatt. Charging from 80% to 90% takes about 9 minutes. As we hit that point in just under 35 minutes, and from here on out, it's pretty much slow going.
it takes almost 40 more minutes to charge from 90% to 100%. It's not too bad up to about 96%, but after that, it really slows to a dribble, which is common with most EVs. And another example of why you just shouldn't stay at a DC fast charger much past 80%. It's just not worth your time. The Gravity in this charging session took longer to charge from 90% to 100% than it did to charge from 0 to 90%. And that's really all you need to know about why you shouldn't charge all the way up to 100% when you're using a DC fast charger.
All right, so as you saw, that thing was ripping in the beginning. 419 kilowatts. That is the most that I've ever witnessed in person of an electric vehicle that I was charging pull. Now, I know there's some EVs that are made in China that can pull a lot more than that, but I've never charged them personally. This was the highest I've ever seen, 419 kilowatt. But it only held it for a couple of minutes and then started tapering down. So it's one thing to watch the charge recording. It's another thing to see how it looks on paper. So that's what we're going to do next. First, we're going to take a look at the charging curve and compare it to the charging curves of the other Gravity charging sessions that I've done. So let's take a look at that now.
All right, so first let me explain what you're looking at. This is the charging power graph with 5 different Gravity 0 to 100% charging sessions, 4 of which I did, and 1 was done by my friend Kyle Connor of Out of Spec. We use each other's data interchangeably because we trust each other to follow proper protocol when doing these recordings. The red line represents this recording done at a Tesla V4 Supercharger. The black line is the recording I did at a Tesla V3.5 Supercharger. The blue line was my recording at an EVgo 350 kilowatt Delta unit. The green line is my recording at an Iona 400 kilowatt Alpatronic charger. And the yellow line represents Kyle's charging session at a ChargePoint 400 kilowatt charger. The x-axis is the vehicle's state of charge during the session. The y-axis is the amount of power the vehicle is accepting. This chart does not account for time. First, let's take a look at this charging session, which is in red. The Gravity busts out of the gate pulling over 400 kilowatt very quickly, peaking at 419 kilowatt and holding over 400 kilowatt until about 12% state of charge. But we see a minor thermal event here, and the Gravity pulls back a little, and the charging power lowers down to 373 kilowatt. It then raises back up to 380 kilowatts. But for 1 minute and 5 seconds, it was slightly derated because of thermals. This is probably what the curve would have looked like if thermal limiting hadn't occurred at that point. There's one more place where it appeared that thermals had to intervene, and that's here at 46% state of charge. Without any thermal limitations, I think the curve would have looked more like this. But the truth is, both of these slight limitations together may have cost us only about 1 minute in this charging session, so most owners wouldn't even have realized it. In fact, the Lucid Gravity has the charging curve set right at the edge of forcing thermal limiting, because you could see here in all of the charge recordings, except for the Tesla V3.5 Supercharger session, there was a point when the vehicle lowered the charging rate temporarily in order to cool things off a bit. That's not necessary when charging on the V3.5 Supercharger, because the maximum power of the Gravity taking in is only about 220 kilowatts. And that's not enough power to trigger a thermal limit, unless perhaps you are charging in an extremely hot ambient condition. The Iona charging session had the biggest thermal event, and even with that huge dip here, only added about 2 minutes to the 0 to 100% charging time. So while it looks terrible on paper, it didn't really extend the charging session too much. And finally, I filled in the area under all of the charging curves to create the perfect Gravity charging curve. This is pretty much what you would see if you were to charge the Gravity at a charger that could deliver as much power as the Gravity was asking, and there were no thermal events during the charging session. This is probably very close to the programmed charging curve that Lucid has given the Gravity. It might be a little different right around 52, 53% where you have this dip here. But other than that, this represents pretty much the perfect charging curve for the Gravity if Lucid could completely iron out any type of thermal event. Okay, so that was a great curve, but I think there was a little thermal throttling involved in that at some point. As you can see with the other charging sessions that I've done, that will happen with the Gravity if you don't arrive at the perfect temperature of the battery, which unfortunately Lucid doesn't give you. Now, most electric vehicles don't display the battery temperature. So you kind of just have to leave it up to battery preconditioning. You press that preconditioning. You hope that when you get to the charging station, it's right where you need it to be. There are some EVs, like the Porsche EVs, for instance, that give you that data. So you know when you're pulling up, okay, this is the perfect temperature for me to be plugging in. You don't really know that with the Gravity. Did I precondition too long? Was the battery a little bit too warm when I got there, which is why we had a little bit of thermal limiting. And when you looked at the Iona charging session on that graph, did I get it really too hot? Because that's why you saw it just drop down and really limit the power for a little while to let things cool off. That's one of the things that I wish all the automakers would do a little bit better, was give their customers more guidance on really the right temperature to pull up with, rather than just saying, oh, just hit preconditioning and you'll get there and it'll be warm enough. Some of the EV geeks, like I assume some of the people watching this video, would really want to know what is the exact temperature I should be pulling up to get maximum charging power for as long as possible. But unfortunately, we don't get that often. Porsche provides really good guidance with that, but they're a super high performance brand and you would kind of expect them to do that. They do all kind of data for their combustion vehicles they give customers, so you would expect them to do that with the electrics, and they do. But still, this was an awesome charging session. So now let's take a look at it on the time to charge charts, where we're going to talk about how long it took to add the number of miles and the average charging speed for different segments of the charging session. So let's jump into that now. Okay, first up, let's take a look at the time to charge chart with the average range replenishing rate and how many miles per minute are added while charging. Okay, we have the charging time in minutes on the x-axis and the state of charge on the y-axis. The red line there is the charging curve. Now take a look at the three lines I have set in here: 25 miles a minute, 20 miles a minute, and 15 miles a minute. When the charging curve follows that line, that's how many miles of EPA-rated driving range the Gravity is adding. You can see here in the very beginning, it's pulling 25 miles a minute, which is outstanding. And as the charging session goes on, it kind of begins to follow the 20 miles per minute line. And finally, it crosses the 15 miles per minute line after about 22 minutes of charging, which at that time, the vehicle was at about 75% state of charge. And then the charging curve becomes a lot more horizontal than vertical. And that's when it's charging slower. You're getting less miles of driving range for every minute of charging. Okay, now let's take a look up here in the upper left-hand corner. It says range replenishment, EPA combined range of 450 miles, which is what the 5-seat Lucid Gravity with the 20-inch front wheels and 21-inch rear wheels is rated at. If you get the 7-seat Gravity, that has slightly less range, and if you upgrade to larger wheels, you also get slightly less range. This is based on the longest range Lucid Gravity that you could get. You can see here, the average over the entire charging session from 0 to 100%, we averaged 6.1 miles of driving range added for every minute. If we carve out the 10 to 80% section of this charging session, we added an average of 13 miles of range for every minute of charging, which was 335 miles of range added in 24.2 minutes. Now take a look at the average from 80% to 90%. It drops way down to only 5.2 miles of range added for every minute, which was 45 miles of driving range in 8.7 minutes. And now let's take a look at the lower right-hand corner where it says average range replenishing rate. On this little section, I break up the charging session into 10-minute blocks. The first 10 minutes, second 10 minutes, third 10 minutes, and so on. And I show you how much range is added based on two metrics. the EPA rated range, and also the results of my 70 mile an hour highway range test, which was less than the EPA rated range. So in the first 10 minutes of charging, we were adding 20.2 EPA rated miles of range for every minute charging. And if we use the results of my 70 mile an hour highway range test with the Gravity, we're adding 18 miles of range for every minute. The second 10-minute section, from 10 minutes to 20 minutes, we were adding 11 miles of EPA rated range for every minute of charging, and 9.8 according to my range test. Now here's where it gets interesting. Look at from 20 minutes to 30 minutes of charging, it drops down to 7 and 6.3 miles of range per minute. And then it gets really slow after a half an hour of charging, down to only 4.1 miles of range and 3.7 miles added for every minute. And then honestly, once you get to 40 minutes, you really shouldn't be plugged in because you're wasting your time. Now you're at 1.9 miles of range for every minute and 1.7. And the 50 to 60, forget about it. Not even a mile for every minute that you're sitting there waiting for the car to charge. Next up, we're going to take a look at the same time to charge chart, but now we're going to look at how long it takes to add driving range. Again, we're going to use two metrics. One is the EPA combined range of the vehicle, which is 450 miles, and the other one is based on the results of my 70 mile an hour highway range test, in which I drove the Gravity 401.7 miles. Okay, I added 50 miles of driving range in 2.2 minutes if you're going to follow the EPA range rating, and 2.4 minutes for my 70 mile an hour highway range test results. 100 miles comes in 4.4 minutes and 5 minutes. 150 miles in 6.9 minutes and 7.9 minutes. And this is the big one that I focus on usually, 200 miles of driving range. 9.9 minutes according to EPA range, and only 11.5 minutes if you go by my 70 mile an hour highway range test. That's a real world range test. If you drive the Gravity in similar conditions to what I did at a constant 70 miles an hour, you can add back 200 miles of driving range in only 11.5 minutes. That's pretty amazing. 250 miles come in 13.8 minutes and 16.7 minutes respectively. 300 miles, 18.7 minutes and 22.7 minutes. That's incredibly impressive. You could add 300 miles of real world driving range in under 23 minutes with the Gravity. That's just great. 350 miles in 24.6 and 32 minutes. 400 miles of driving range in 33.8 minutes according to EPA, and 65.1 minutes according to my highway range test, that's because I ended up with 401 miles. So basically you have to charge to 100%. And as I've talked about multiple times in this video, you really don't want to charge any electric vehicle much above 80% at a DC fast charger, because the charging rate slows up so much, it's just not worth continuing to charge. I'm not even going to read the 450 mile results, because honestly, I don't think the vehicle can do 450 miles unless you're driving it much slower than 70 miles an hour. So that's not really a number that anybody would need to be concerned with. And finally, we're going to take a look at my master charging graphs for the Lucid Gravity. In these graphs, there's a ton of data. This is the one that the data geeks really love to download and keep. It shows you every 10% of the battery charging block. You could take a look at, if you plug in at 10% and charge to 50%, all the data for that segment. You could start at 30% and go to 90%, and all the data for that section. And they're color coded depending on how fast that segment of the charging session was. I'll explain it when I jump into it. Now, I'm not going to go over every box. It would take me probably 2 hours to do that, but I'll take a look at a couple boxes so you understand exactly how this works. And if you are a Lucid Gravity owner, you should print this up. Either take a screenshot or go to my website, evchargingstations.com, where you could download it and print it up, because this gives you everything you need to know about charging your Gravity, well, for this specific charging session on a Tesla V4 charger. I have it for other chargers that I did in the past on the website also. But for this specific charging session, it gives you all the data that you could possibly ever need to know At what state of charge do you need to plug in, and when do you need to unplug to add a certain amount of miles, and how much power the vehicle takes in on an average during that specific segment. There's a lot of data in there. So let's jump into the final graph, which is my master charging graph. The way this chart works is that every box represents a segment of the charging session from a specific starting point to an ending point in 10% state of charge increments. The starting state of charge is on the x-axis at the top of the chart, and the ending state of charge is shown on the y-axis on the left. The legend for how the box data is shown is located at the middle of the bottom of the chart. In that, you can see each box shows the time that segment took to charge, the increase in state of charge for that segment, the range added in that segment, the average power during that segment, and the amount of kilowatt hour added in that segment. On the bottom left, you could also see that the boxes are also color coded based on how fast the segment of the charging session was, with the light green boxes being the fastest and the red boxes being the slowest. All right, so let's see how it works. Let's say you wanted to see the data for the portion of this charging session starting at 20% and ending at 70% state of charge. You'd go to the 20% column on the top and scroll down to the 70% column on the left and look at the data in that box. So charging from 20% to 70% took 16 minutes, and we added 50% state of charge, which is 225 EPA rated miles. The average charging power the Gravity took in during that segment was 236 kilowatt, and 61 kilowatt hour was added to the battery pack. Now you can see that same data from any starting and ending point of this charging session that you choose. Now I have the 10 to 80% and 20 to 80% boxes highlighted here with a black dotted line because those starting and ending points are what are commonly discussed and used to compare one EV to another. Now I'm not going to go over the rest of the boxes. You could take a screenshot, you could stop the video, you could print up this chart if you really want to do a deep dive in it, but all the information is there. Pretty much anything you need to know about that charging session is listed in this box. And this box here is based on the EPA rated range of 450 miles. I have another chart, which I'm going to put up now, that is very similar data, but the data on this chart here is based on my 70 mile an hour highway range test, which ended after I drove 401.7 miles. All right, well, that's all I have here today for my Lucid Gravity charging at the first and only at the time Tesla V4 Supercharger. And I have to say at the time because when I did this recording, it indeed was the only Tesla V4 Supercharger in the country. But about an hour ago, Tesla announced that their second V4 Supercharger is opening up or just opened in Utah. So while I did this recording, it was the only V4 Supercharger. Tesla opened up their second one before I was able to edit and post this video. So now we have two Tesla V4 Superchargers in the US. Hopefully there's a lot more coming soon because they really can pump out the power. As you saw here, it had no difficulty giving the Gravity all the power it was asking for, charging up to 419 kilowatts. So after really looking at all the data from my EVgo recording, the Iona recording, all of the chargers that could deliver 350 kilowatt or more, the real result is it really doesn't make a difference. It will only make a difference if you plan on plugging in at a very low state of charge, say 5% or under, and only staying for like 5 minutes. In that instance, the higher powered chargers like this V4 Supercharger, the 400 kilowatt chargers that I charge at Iona and at ChargePoint, those will add the miles much faster up at the front. But then they lower their charging rate. And some of the other chargers that can't deliver over 400 kilowatts holds the charging rate a little bit longer because it's not getting the early derating that you'll get if the vehicle's accepting over 400 kilowatt or around 400 kilowatt. So when it really comes to like a substantial charging stop. Like if you're going to charge from 10 to 80% or 10 to 75% because you're on a road trip, it doesn't matter. We're talking a minute, maybe 2-minute difference if you're charging at a V4 Supercharger or a 400 kilowatt charger or a 350 kilowatt charger, provided that they're working and providing the full power that they should. So while it was fun to see 419 kilowatts pumping into the Gravity, when I really looked at the amount of time it takes to go from 10 to 80 or 20 to 70, whatever you might be stopping at during a road trip, the difference was almost negligible. When I do these charge recordings of 0 to 100%, that's not real world. Nobody does that out in the real life, but we do that because it's good to give you a complete picture of what the vehicle can do on different chargers, the full charging curve. But in real life, when you're out there, you're not driving it to 0. Well, most people don't. Like you might be plugging at 13% and charging to 53% or whatever, 21% and charging to 82%. And that's why that last chart that I put up there is so important. You could really see a snapshot of starting point and ending point, about how long it's going to take you, how much power you're going to get delivered, how many miles it's going to add, what the average power is going to be. So I have a lot of followers that print those up for the cars that they own and keep them in the glove box. It's kind of like a quick reference guide so you know about how long you have to stop in order to add the amount of miles you need to get to your destination. And that's what it's all about. We talk about high DC fast charge rates and everything. Makes great videos, but what it comes down to is how long do I have to stop to add X amount of miles to make it to either the next charger or to my final destination? That's all that matters. And that's why I specialize in doing those range replenishing rate charts, because that doesn't just tell you what percentage you ended at. It really gives you how long it takes to add X amount of miles. And that's what you need when you're trying to make a destination. How long do I have to plug in? When can I unplug to add X amount of miles? So those are useful charts also. Well, that's all I have here today. If this is your first time here at State of Charge, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming electric vehicle news and reviews. And as always, thanks for watching.